Arizona's back at home for their second game in 2 days. Hey, you're a West Coaster. Can you explain to me why the Pac-12 plays 2 games in 2 days all the time? Why do they do that?
I I don't know. I don't know. It's I think doesn't every West Coast, I know the WCC is on that same like Thursday, Saturday schedule, which they can probably break out of a little bit more since BYU is no longer there. And BYU is the reason why they played Saturdays and not Thursday or Sundays or Fridays because uh, BYU couldn't play on Sundays. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's predictable, right? I think you look at Arizona's schedule, it's like Thursday, Saturday. I think there's a Wednesday game in there, but it's basically just Thursday, Saturday, Thursday, Saturday, Thursday, Saturday. Gets you into that NCAA tournament mode, right? So maybe that's what they're prepping for on the West Coast. West Coast teams, they're prepping for the cadence that comes in March.
I just want to say how much I hate it. Am I allowed to say how much I hate it?
You are allowed to say how much you hate it.
This is not basketball, and it is basketball by default, but it's like sloppy, not real basketball. Like I'm sorry, when you make a team travel from one road venue to another in a 36-hour span for no reason, the team's like almost always just going to get blown out the second time. Like we saw that happen to Arizona last week. Like they went from Cal to Stanford, 2 road games, 2 in the state of California, and they lose by 18 points at Stanford. And Stanford played well. They shot a bunch of, like, they made a bunch of shots, but like, what are we doing?
To be fair on that one, Greg, is that I just drove from like 30 minutes south of Stanford to like 30 minutes east of Cal to handle plumbing issues with the house. It took me an hour and 15 minutes. So that one isn't as much. The two big ones really are this one, Colorado, Utah, is a pretty big distance. And then Washington State's like a 4-hour bus ride or whatever, hour and a half plane ride. But you're talking about USC, UCLA, they're just across town. Cal, Stanford are just across the bay from each other. Arizona State, Arizona are pretty close. So Oregon State are like an hour and a half drive, 2-hour drive from each other.
I don't like it in principle. I don't like it in principle. It's not like I could go to one city for vacation for 3 nights. And if I'm unpacking my bags night 1 and I'm there for 3 nights, fine. It's a road trip. If I'm there on night 1 and then on night 2, I got to switch hotels, I'm not settling in. I'm not comfortable. It's a mental thing. And in this one, Arizona's at home for their second game in 2 days. Utah is on the road for their second game in 2 days. They were at Arizona State on Thursday. Now they're at Arizona. Arizona State, significantly worse than Arizona. Utah loses to Arizona State by 12 at Arizona State. So, hey, congrats. You had your worst performance of the season. Here's one of the best teams in the country 36 hours later at their home court. Arizona has been stellar at home. It doesn't matter how many games off they've had or days off. They're just always great at home. Give me one reason why I should be slightly skeptical that Arizona is not just going to blitz Utah in this game.
Because Utah is basically like the, I don't know, Wisconsin or Virginia of the Pac-12 this year. Like they just, where would you put Utah from a talent standpoint, like, or just a raw talent standpoint in the Pac-12 pecking order? Probably closer to the middle, maybe bottom half, depending on who you put ahead of them. But they play efficient basketball. They play really good basketball, and it can frustrate teams. I know in this particular case, Arizona doesn't need to travel that distance. But Utah's coming off a loss to Arizona State. I'm sure they are trying to lock in. I'm not going to say that looking ahead to Arizona was a part of that loss, but I'm sure throughout the week, the coaching staff was looking at both teams. And obviously Arizona is the bigger win. It's the bigger game on their schedule, road game on their schedule. This is a team that they play efficient offense. Defense can be suspect at times. Don't force turnovers. So if a team's making shots from deep, it's pretty rough for Utah. But if they can make threes at a clip that we've seen them do at points this season, They're shooting just under 40%, but they've had some big scoring games. They put up 95 on Washington. They put up, I think it was like 90, but 90 plus against Southern Utah, something like that. So this is a team that just, they don't play as fast as Arizona, but they certainly don't play slow. They can keep up with the pace as long as they're not kind of trying to run back on defense. And I think that's going to be the big key is as long as they limit their turnovers, they have a shot. Not a good one, but they have a shot. Limit their turnovers, make threes. Kind of the recipe to beat a team that's as good as Arizona.
Yeah, I think for some reason I don't think Utah is necessarily going to be uncomfortable playing the way Arizona wants to play. I just think they're going to be uncomfortable with how good Arizona's players are, if that makes, like, sometimes there's a matchup where you're like, this doesn't bode well. I don't get that sense for Utah in this game. I look at who Brandon Carlson is going to go up against, and I'm like, ooh, that one's not great for him. Or like, you can go up and down the entire starting lineups of these teams, and look, you're going to do that to whoever Arizona plays most games, unless they're playing Purdue. But I just think it's notable in this one. That's what stands out to me is like, well, how are they going to deal with Kylan Boswell? How are they going to, like, it's just kind of guy by guy. There's not an advantage, you know?
It's the Utah can't win this on individual matchups.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they lose this game. I mean, it's just, they have to be able to get back into their 5-man defense on every single possession and then execute on offense on every single possession to have a shot, where Arizona could, can attack off of misses. They can attack off of turnovers. You don't necessarily have to have Umar Ballo down on the other end of the floor on offense for Arizona to get a quick bucket from Caleb Love or Kashad Johnson, right? Where I think Utah, I mean, you look at every single position, I don't see one where they have an advantage. But if they're going to win this game, it's like they have to make it 5-on-5 basketball rather than 5 individual players versus 5 individual players. And I don't think they have the athletes to do that for 40 minutes.
Yeah, early in the season, I thought Utah had to win games with Carlson being superhero mode. I actually don't think that's true. Like, I think he's capable of doing that, but I think you're right. They're better when they're operating as a sum of their parts. When Gabe Madsen is banging in threes, if Cole Bajima can get going. By the way, is it Bajima? I used to say Bajima when he was at Michigan, but nobody tells me how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I think it's Bajima.
Or Bajima.
I've been watching games on mute ever since I had a toddler. So
smart man.
It's tough, but you're right. I think it's those 3, Madsen, Bajima, Carlson have to hit shots from deep, really to have a shot, and Worcester, Erickson, like, they need to be able to make plays against a really tough perimeter defense, really tough defensive guards for their teammates. And I think that's actually probably where they lose. I think those two are going to have a lot of, it's going to be rough for them. And you're going to see a stretch maybe in the first half, but probably early in that second half after adjustments are made by Tommy Lloyd, where you get a couple of turnovers, a guard jumping the passing lane, etc., that break off a run, and probably put Arizona up double digits. But we just saw Stanford shoot 64% from 3 against them. Utah's a much better 3-point shooting team. So, I'm not giving Utah 0 chance, but I mean, Arizona's just top 5 team in the country, and Utah's not. Utah might be the second best team in the Pac-12. That's not saying a lot. I know they lost against a sub 100, top 100 team in Arizona State. But Arizona State also has some athletes that I think can give Utah issues. And I think Arizona's the same way. Their backcourt's just filled with athletes. Their front court has size and strength. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty comfortable win for Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah, they have the secret formula, I think, right? The secret formula is just do what Stanford did. It's and you don't have to do it that well, I don't think. You don't have to go 16 for 25 from three, but hit a couple of early ones, get Arizona uncomfortable defensively, make it a you score, I score type game. Utah is good enough from the perimeter to do that if they are left open. They're not, I don't think they're going to create a ton of great looks. That's the thing. But I have a hypothesis on Arizona defensively this year, which this doesn't bode well for Utah, but I think they're elite defensively at home, and I don't really think they care defensively away from home for some reason. Now, part of that's because they've played better teams away from home, but you go through these games at home. Let me just read the numbers of points they've allowed in home games this year. 59, 59, 68 to Belmont, 56, 55 to Colgate, 73 to a Wisconsin team that can score, 50 to Colorado. I mean, that's pretty much a great defensive performance every single game, just points per game wise. And then on the road, like, again, better teams, but 81 to Cal, 82 to Stanford, neutral sites where you've given up 84, 95. I just think at home they're going to be juiced and they're comfortable here. You see the best version of this team. I don't think that bodes well for Utah. The final note I have on Utah, I think they might be the only team in the country that has played three different top 4 KenPom teams now. They played Houston, they played BYU, now they have Arizona. Respectable showings, to say the least, right? Houston was a competitive game. They lose by 10 in the end. BYU, they get a home win by 4. Do you think there's something to this team being like a big game team?
It might be that they're a big game team. It might be just that, are we ever going to really know what Houston is before March? Because I get they've beaten Utah, they beat Dayton, they beat Xavier, they beat Texas A&M, but none of those teams are top 20. I guess we'll see later on in Big 12 play, but this is a Houston team where, I think they could, just kind of meander their way through the Big 12, have some good games, come out with a third place finish, and we still don't really know what to make of them. Because right now, it's best defense in the country. Their offense has been really hit or miss at points this season. And I think going into a Big 12 slate where, Big 12 is a great defensive basketball conference. They could continue to struggle, but I should clarify that. We will know what Houston is at the end of the season. I don't think we know what Houston is right now. But for Utah, it's one of those things that they're going up against an Arizona team that's 11-0 when their opponents have not scored 90 points. And they are 0-3 when their opponents scored 90. Makes sense. You score more points, you tend to win more games. But do you see Utah scoring 90 points?
No, I don't, but that it just sticks in my head. There would be teams I would say comfortably no way in this spot. Utah is not a team I can feel 100% confident in saying that. I trust their shooting ability as a team. Even if one guy's cold, I trust they have enough shooters that they could exploit what I don't think Arizona's great at. Because if there is a weakness of the Arizona defense, they let teams attempt threes and teams are making a decent clip against them from three. Arizona's great at everything else. So I think that really is the trump card here. It's just do they pull the pocket aces out of their back pocket and shoot 60% from three? I think they're going to need that to hang in this game. It's not like a Stanford situation where you do that and you blow them out at home. This is more you need that for this to be competitive. They are capable, I wouldn't bet on it though. That's the thing. Like I
No,
think
no.
I think the line opened at actually let me pull the betting. I think it's like 12 and a half right now.
It's 12 on Ken Palm. I don't know what the betting line is,
Let me pull
but
up
I
the
also
actual
forgot
number.
that Houston was in the Big 12. So,
Right.
I'm just out of it today. But while you look that up, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think they're going to have to play this in a very similar way to the way that I said Wisconsin had to play it, and got some pushback for that. But like, despite Utah being able to keep up and play a fast tempo, I don't think they can run with Arizona. Um, and so because of that, again, they're going to have to finish possessions with made shots. They're going to have to not turn the ball over. Um, and I just think there's going to be 2 to 3 times in this game where Arizona, and maybe it's not a huge run, but Arizona's going to go on like an 8-2 run, a 9-2 run, and then go shot for shot with Utah. And I just don't think Utah can win a game like that. Like, I don't think Utah has come back down 10 against Arizona ability. And I think there's going to be a point in this game where they're going to need that,
Yeah.
barring a 60% 3-point shooting performance, like we saw from Stanford.
I think you're spot on. The line is up to 13 and a half. I believe it opened at 12 or 12 and a half. I forget which one about an hour ago, but I think the public is betting what I'll be betting in this game. I like Arizona to win this game by 20 plus points. They've been that good at home. And it's the dreaded 36-hour turnaround time, Connor. I'm not going to shake that. What's your formal prediction for this game?
I think that Arizona is going to win this. I'll put it less than 20, because I do think that I'm going to give a little bit more respect to Utah shooters, and to how efficient they've been this season offensively. So I'll go like in the 15 to 18 range. Still a blowout, comfortable win. Um, from an individual performance standpoint, though, I think that this is going to be a game where you see a lot of Umar Ballo almost taken out of this game because of the way Utah's going to need to play against them. Like their bigs are going to need to shoot. Umar Ballo is okay away from the basket, but I'd much rather, if I was Arizona, have Kashad Johnson at the 5 if Utah's making a bunch of threes, and then play a little bit smaller. But then again, I also think Umar Ballo could dominate offensively in the paint. So it's going to be an interesting chess match, I think, for Tommy Lloyd, and to see how he approaches a game like this, where you have a 40% 3-point shooting 7-footer on the other team, and how does he use Ballo away from the basket defensively against that? Because I just don't see him sticking Ballo in the paint and keeping him there. He can't. So.
Yeah, he's gonna have to make the right moves here. I think he has enough different options to figure it out. Also, like, not that I expect Krivas to go guard the perimeter, but Krivas is coming off a great Krivas game against Colorado. So I'm excited to see how he builds on that. Arizona is going to have enough people perform well in this game. I feel very confident in that. So, all right, that's Connor Hope from Heat Check CBB. I'm GregWaddell from Sleepers Media. We will have a recap up for this game at some point later this weekend. Subscribe to the Sleepers Media channel so that you do not miss it.